Today, as we continue through the four-field modules, we're going to talk about who can and who can't, embracing the priesthood of the believer. In 1 Peter 2:9 it says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the excellencies of Him who called you out of darkness into His marvelous light." We believe that every believer has priestly duties. And one of the things that gets in the way of movements, the movement of the gospel, is when we don't release authority and give responsibility for these priestly duties. So we've identified 5 speed bumps to movement, and these speed bumps have to do with not releasing authority, not embracing the priesthood of the believer. And the first one that we've identified is, who can share the gospel? So today we're going to look at the scriptures and we're going to make a comparison between Billy Graham and the Samaritan woman. So in groups of 2 to 6 people, we want you to turn to John chapter 4 and read that chapter out loud together and then answer these questions. What was their gender? What was their formal education level? How long had they been a believer? What was their reputation? What was their lifestyle like? And then finally, what was the result of them sharing the gospel? So go ahead and pause the video right here, read John chapter 4 together, and answer the questions. All right, great job of working your way through John chapter 4 that tells us about the Samaritan woman. And hopefully you knew something about Billy Graham. If not, you got a chance to Google him. Okay, the first question is, what gender? Obviously, Billy Graham is a male and the Samaritan woman is a female. Next is the educational level, formal education. Billy Graham had numerous honorary doctorates, where the Samaritan woman probably didn't have any formal education. As far as how long were they a believer? So Billy Graham came to Christ when he was 16 years old in 1934 and then started his formal ministry in 1947, 13 years. Where the Samaritan woman, well, hours maybe, probably less than a few hours. As far as reputation, Billy Graham was famous. He was known worldwide and well respected. Where on the other hand, the woman at the well had apparently had 5 men in her life, so she was probably infamous. Then you look at lifestyle. Again, Billy Graham was considered one of the purest men of God of his time, where here the Samaritan woman, well, not so pure beforehand, and you've heard of the Good Samaritan. Well, she would probably fall under the category of the bad Samaritan. And what were the results? Well, Billy Graham led thousands of people to Christ around the world. But the Samaritan woman, within a matter of hours at the most, talks to the village, and the whole village comes to Christ. Now, in no way are we advocating that believers sharing the gospel should be cavalier about their lifestyle. No, they should be very diligent about obeying Christ's commands. But The point of this comparison is that a very young Christian, a brand new baby believer, can share the gospel and can be extremely effective. So we need to be very careful about putting extra biblical requirements on the witness. All she had to do was point to Jesus, and the results were astounding. And we see other examples of this in scriptures, like the demoniac that goes to 10 cities, the Decapolis, and then the Thessalonican church when Paul was only there 3 Sabbaths. And in 1 Thessalonians 1:8, he says the gospel is rang out to all Macedonia and Achaia. And that's in a matter of months. And that's why we, with the No Place Left vision, are working very hard to teach the young believer how to share the gospel with their relational network. Now, today, we've only tackled one speed bump: who can share the gospel? But there are 4 more that we find all the time, like who can make disciples, or who can baptize, who can serve the Lord's Supper, and then who can be church. These are speed bumps to movement, and we need to commit ourselves to get back in the scriptures and look, what are the biblical requirements for the disciple maker to perform these skills or ministry tasks? And then don't add extra stuff to it, but make sure that we stay biblical. And as we do this, we'll be releasing authority and helping disciples to own their God-given right and responsibility to be the priest in order to advance God's kingdom until there's no place left.